Good evening, and welcome to Spelman College's first virtual town hall for the summer of 2021. I'm Mary Schmidt-Campbell, and as the 10th president of Spelman College, I am so pleased to be with you this evening to address three topics that I know are of especial concern to you. Let's start with the slides, please, Ingrid. Our three topics this evening are topics which we've heard from you in telephone calls, in emails, on social media about our 2021 admissions. And we know there's been a lot of conversation about that. And so this evening, we'd like to take some time and make sure that we have all of our facts in terms of 2021 admissions. We'd also like to review with you Spelman College's pandemic response to date. As we all know, this has been one of the worst public health crises in 100 years. And in the past 18 months, Spelman has had to give a great deal of thought to how we balance our support of our students, our faculty, and our staff as we consider the future sustainability of the college. And finally, I'd like to share with you our plans for the path forward for academic year 2022. Before I begin, let me remind you that this town hall is 45 minutes. It'll extend from 5 p.m. to 5:45. For your convenience, the town hall is recorded and will be posted later this week on spelman.edu. We invite you to ask questions during the session, and you can do so by clicking on the Q&A function on your Zoom page. I will answer questions in the course of my presentation, and there will be time at the end of my presentation to answer additional questions. As you know, we always have more questions than we have time. So any questions we don't get to this evening will be posted on our FAQ page on the spelman.edu website. Next slide. Tonight, we are joined by members of the college's senior leadership team. And you can see all of the names and positions that they hold on the slide that you're viewing right now. Tonight, we have registered 1,200 attendees. And I see that we're now up to over 500 participants, and the number continues to grow. And I know you join us tonight with many questions about the fall semester. And I can tell you these past 18 months have been exceptional. The college, you, our faculty, our staff, we have all had to invent a new way to experience a Spelman education. This spring, we had a small group of students on campus and began the process of restoring our college to a residential experience. Now, with the coming academic year, we're taking a major step towards restoring the college to a residential learning environment. In taking this step, we know there are many aspects of the fall semester that will be new and unfamiliar. So in the next series of town halls, we will share our plans, we'll hear feedback from you, and we'll make every effort to be responsive to your concerns so that as we enter the new academic year, we do so with a renewed spirit and a renewed sense of purpose. So let's start with our first topic, which is Spelman admissions and the dilemma that was posed to us this year. In the course of discussing this topic, I'm going to review with you the number of applications that Spelman has received over the past 5 years and the trend that we've been experiencing with our application growth. We'll then take a look at our acceptances and something we called our yield. That is the percentage of students who accept our acceptances and take a look at the trends that we have been noticing over 5 years in terms of our yield, because those trends help us to predict what our enrollments will be in the future. We'll also take a look at the trend for our returning students, and that will give us some sense of how we came to the circumstance that we are in today in terms of our numbers of enrolled students and our availability of our housing and our options for the fall semester. Next slide. So let's start with the applications. When I first came to Spelman College in 2015, the year before, which was 2014, the college had received 4,000 applications. The year that I arrived, it was 5,000. And you can see how since 2015, the number of applications has steadily gone up. And even from 2018 to now, the applications have risen from 8,000 to 9,000. They seem to plateau around the 9,000 mark. And then, much to our surprise, this year, we received a record number of applications, almost 11,500. This turns out to be the highest number of applications we've gotten in the history of Spelman College. Next slide. This slide demonstrates to you the yield. Now, what do I mean by yield? By the yield, I mean that once we have offered students acceptance to Spelman College, what percentage of those students accept our acceptance and come to Spelman? Well, as far back as 2013, 2014, you can see it was about in the 20%. But starting at about 2015, that percentage started to drop year after year after year. That's the blue line that you see trending down. The green line are the percentage of students that we accept from our applicant pool in order to get our enrolled class. And so every year we have been inching up on the numbers that we accept so that we can get the enrollment target that we need for Spelman College. Next slide. If I look at that in numbers, what you can see is that our admissions people have done an incredible job of figuring out exactly how many students they need to admit to get this figure in the column that says enrolled. And that number has varied from 533 to 571 to 576 in the fall of 2020. And they have been very, very accurate at figuring out what percentage they need to accept in order to get an enrollment figure that hits our target. This year, they accepted a slightly lower percentage of students. And again, unexpectedly, we have so far 775 students who accepted our offer of admissions. This is a 17%. This 17% is a 5% increase over the percentage that accepted us last year. And it's significantly higher than percentages we have been experiencing for the past 4 or 5 years. So I say all this to say that there were many, many observations about why did Spelman accept so many students. That wasn't the case. The case was that so many students unexpectedly accepted Spelman College this year. Next slide. We have also had the phenomenon of returning students. And you can look at the numbers of returning students, which has been pretty steady over the years until you get to fall of 2020. And our returning students also start to go up. And the trend that we're seeing for this year is that number will most likely go up as well. So we have a convergence. We have more students who are being retained and coming back to Spelman to continue their studies. And we have more students than anticipated as first year who want to come to Spelman. So we have an unusual situation in having a population that is larger than we usually have. So that has created for us a dilemma in terms of housing. Now, for those of you who've been at Spelman for many years, you know that our housing policy requires first and second years to live on campus. Juniors and seniors participate in a housing lottery, and those who are chosen in the lottery can live on campus as well. But we always have every year students who don't get it, who don't receive housing through the lottery. And as a result, Spelman has always had about 700 students who commute, who are commuters. And that figure is higher this year than it has usually been, but we always have and will have for until we build new residence halls. We will always have a pool of students who are juniors and seniors who are not able to get available housing. That's a particularly difficult situation this year because those of you who are juniors know that you were first years when the pandemic first required you to leave campus in March of 2020. All colleges and universities across the country had to evacuate their campuses. So you were a first year, and then when you became a sophomore, for the most part, we spent most of the next year off campus, except for a very small population that came back in the spring. So now you are juniors, and you have had as an experience at Spelman only those 6 or 7 months that you spent as a first year student. So this has been particularly hard for our current juniors, our class of 2023. Next slide. So during this pandemic, during these 18 months that we've been away from Spelman College, what has Spelman been doing to support its students? We have had many activities. We've had a virtual Founders Day. We've had a virtual salute to our seniors. We've had Spellcella. We've had any number of speakers and conversations and town halls. But more specifically, Spelman College has taken steps that distinguish it from many other colleges in this country. Next slide. And what I'd like to do is just very briefly share with you some of the steps that we have taken in order to support our students during the pandemic. First, when you were asked to leave in March of 2020, the college partially refunded the room and board and mandatory fees. Many colleges did not, but Spelman was one of the colleges that chose to give you a room and board and mandatory fees refund. During that time, when we switched from in-person to remote learning, we found it necessary to also distribute technology in the form of laptops, tablets, and hotspots. We also set up immediately a Spelman student-funded student emergency fund for housing relief, for food, for medicine, for anything that our students by application indicated was an emergency. And we were later able to supplement that with higher education emergency relief funds that came from the federal government, what we call our stimulus funds. But it really was in the fall of 2020 that Spelman took probably one of the most radical steps of any college or university in the country. and that is we discounted tuition and fees by 14%. Now, there were a few other colleges that did discount tuition, but very few out of the 4,000 colleges and universities around the country. We did that as a way of supporting our student body. And so for this fall, instead of going back to the tuition that we had in 2020, we also instituted a tuition reset, which means that we reduced our tuition back to 2018 to soften the blow of going back to a full tuition for our students and their families. We provided a number of different types of financial aid support, including assistance with existing balances, as well as outright financial aid grants. Next slide. So what's the path forward going to be for academic year 2022? And before I go on that, I'm looking at some of the questions that have come in to see if there are questions that relate to the topics that I have just covered. Question: I have been eagerly awaiting information regarding the process to request emergency funds to assist students. Please advise on this when this information will be provided. So this question is, I just talked about the emergency funds we awarded in the past. The question is about emergency funds that will be awarded. I'm going to call on Dawn Alston, who is our CFO, who's with us this evening, and ask Dawn, do we have a sense of when those federal funds will be available for distribution?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. You should be receiving an email by July the 9th, which will describe the process for applying for emergency funds. But I can share that students will be receiving a dispersal from the American Rescue Plan funds by July the 29th. The communication that you will receive will have more information about how much the dispersal is, as well as any steps that you need to take to receive it.
Thank you, Dawn. So let's look at the path forward, and that is the academic year 2022, the year coming forward. And we already have, several questions about new student orientation, but I'm going to go through the path forward, and then I'm going to come back and begin to address those questions about new student orientation. Next slide. We have had throughout this pandemic 3 guiding principles for all of our decision making. The first is that whatever decision we make, we have first and foremost at top of mind the health and safety and well-being of the Spelman community. The second guiding principle has to be that whatever decision we make has to be made within the context of understanding that we're making it in order to maintain academic excellence and also to maintain financial sustainability. These decisions are not made by any one person alone. They're made by a task force that represents faculty, students, staff, administrators, trustees, and is chaired by our provost, Sharon Davies, and by our CFO, Dawn Alston. We have anywhere from 35 to 50 members of this task force. They have been meeting once a week, and they have been going over all the questions that all of the topics that I'm presenting in this next slide have issued forth to a great extent from our task force. Next slide. So our plans for the academic year 2022 is that we restore our residential campus experience as much as possible. As part of that, we will, as you heard from our CFO, begin the distribution of stimulus funds, and they will begin reaching you by July 29th. In addition to those federal funds, Spelman will once again have its own private sources that will be available to us, so that again, by application, we will be able to receive requests, emergency requests for those funds. For students who have had, who find that they made a housing application and were not able to get housing, and now find that they have to live off campus, we're looking for a way of providing transportation assistance. Those conversations are underway, and we hope to be able to announce something shortly. I should add that any student who is a commuter to Spelman is also eligible for a meal plan, which would be the same meal plan that you would have if you were on campus in a residence hall. Remote learning. There are many, many questions in the chat about remote learning. And you should have received, and if you haven't received, there will be a new mailing that will go out tomorrow. That is a form in which you can request an exception for remote learning. And those exceptions will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to ask our provost, Sharon Davies, to comment on how we're handling requests for remote learning.
All right, thank you very much, President Campbell. So Spelman College is very much looking forward to having our students back in our classes and having our faculty back in front of those classes. We know that there's something really special that happens when our students are engaged in their classrooms side by side with their peers and in close proximity with their professors. We took a very close look at the plans that were underway at residential colleges like ours, top women's colleges across the country, top liberal arts colleges across the country. And we saw overwhelming evidence that that residential campus experience is foremost in the minds of our peer institutions as they welcome their communities back into the classroom. So in general, we will have classes in person, and that means in-person attendance by our students and in-person teaching by our faculty. We will have exceptions to that. We know that there may be exceptional circumstances that make that undoable for some of our faculty and for some of our students. So what we have done is we've created a review team that will look at applications for exceptions on a case-by-case basis. And we have on our website, we have some listed exceptional circumstances that students and their families or faculty might consider if they decide to apply for an exceptional circumstance waiver. But for the most part, we're looking forward to having our students back and our faculty back in our classes and laboratory spaces and other living and learning spaces on our campus.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions about new student orientation. And so, Dr. Holloman, I'm going to ask you to please share the dates for new student orientation, the dates of move-in, the dates between which the orientation will take place, and the dates when parents can be with their students on campus. Those are all a collection of the questions that have come in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. I've been trying to answer those as we've gone through our session. Move-in dates are for our students are from for first year students will be November 10th.
I think you mean August.
August, I'm sorry. August, thank you. Will be August 10th through the 12th, and that's for first year students. For continuing students, it will be August 13th and August 16th. And then our new student orientation will run from August 12th through the 17th, with August 12th being the parent orientation. The parent orientation is scheduled for parents in the class of 2025. However, we are attempting to get all of our first years and our second years on campus so that they can have the full gamut of the new student orientation experience. We do have several things we're scheduling and planning for the class of 2024. I pitched an idea the other day. I don't know how this is going to go. My staff were saying to call it something else, but we were thinking about scheduling a sophomore prom, because we know a lot of our students missed their prom opportunities last year. And so we want to try to give an opportunity for them to be able to dress up and wear their ball gowns and schedule that. So we're being very intentional about trying to create an experience. We do realize that we cannot recapture an experience from 2024, but we are infusing in our sophomore year experience throughout the year, where students have an opportunity to learn all of the histories and traditions that are a part of our beloved community. And lastly, Dr. Campbell, I wrote this down because I want to share this with everyone. I've shared this with some members of my team. Dr. Campbell has instructed that my team will be the ones that recapture the values and the culture of our community. And that is what our student affairs team and our entire college team will be doing throughout this year, really serving to reinstill the values, the cultures, and to board our students on campus so that they have a very vibrant college experience. Any other questions that occur, I'll try to continue to answer in the question and answer phase. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
Yes, there was a wonderful question that just popped up in the chat about whether or not there was going to be the traditional send-off and departure, which is quite beautiful and quite moving. And the answer to that is yes. And there was also a question about Olive Branch, which is the traditional event where students from students from Spelman and students from Morehouse have an opportunity to come together and understand the values of that particular connection and academic partnership. So yes, we are working very hard to restore those extraordinary traditions that are the traditions of greeting, of embracing our students, of the departure of our parents, of the orienting to the history and traditions of Spelman College. All of that we mean to bring back to life with the restoration of the residential experience. I do want to touch on medical protocols, because that's the one last bullet here on this slide, and I haven't gone through that. I want to make sure that I hit that before we get back to the Q&A. The number one protocol that you should be aware of is that Spelman, along with all of the other campuses and on the Atlanta University Center, Morehouse School of Medicine, Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, we are requiring a vaccination. And the requirement is for faculty, students, staff, administrators. You are able to request a vaccination exemption, and we have received exemptions based on for medical reasons or religious reasons, and we have been reviewing them as we have been receiving them and giving responses. There will be testing. Those of you who spent time on campus in the spring know that students were tested twice a week, and everyone else was tested once a week. I still get my once a week test, even though it's summer, as do all of the staff who are working here on campus. We have not set in stone the testing regimen yet, but whether you are vaccinated or not, we will have some form of testing that will take place on campus. Masking. For the time being, we are going to definitely require masking, that I think for the month of August. And then after August 30th, I believe that we are going to permit those who are vaccinated don't have to wear masks outdoors, but for all indoors, we're asking that people wear masks. You may know that this Delta variant is more infectious. The illness from it is more severe, and masking still is a way to lower the infection rate. We have refurbished classrooms to improve classrooms, residence halls, study lounges all over the college. We have done a great deal of refurbishment to improve air quality. You will see when you come back to campus that we have built plexiglass interventions for those staff who have face-to-face encounters with students, such as at the dining hall or the mail center or in financial aid. These are called sneeze guards. If you walk all over campus, you'll notice that there are dispensers with masks in them and sanitizing stations throughout the campus. And our FMS staff have been working overtime really to keep the campus in a high state of sanitized through adopting cleaning and sanitizing regimens. So these are all of the medical protocols that are in place. And I'm going to turn back now to some of the questions that have come out and respond to those that are relevant. I've got a lot of questions about parking. And Dawn, the questions about parking are, is there going to be any consideration of either lowering or doing away with parking fees for those students who have to commute to campus?
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Unfortunately, we won't be able to eliminate the parking fee, but what I would encourage is that if you find that you need financial assistance to pay for parking, we will have the Student Emergency Fund, and you can apply for funds to help you to pay for parking. We did reduce the parking fee the last time we were on campus for all of our students. But I think your best resource is to apply for the Student Emergency Funds to be able to pay for the parking fee.
Thank you. We have a question about counseling, and is the counseling department open? I should mention under medical protocols, Spelman College has just entered into a relationship with Morehouse School of Medicine, which has just built a brand new medical center across the street from Spelman. So they will be adding additional counseling services and medical services to the college. But I'm going to ask Dr. Holloman to tell us, is counseling available now? And when will counseling become available, if not now?
Yes, counseling is absolutely available now. We have had a very robust spring semester where we really took advantage of telemental health opportunities, and that it has been very successful, but the counseling center is open. I did see in the chat, someone said that they couldn't reach someone in the counseling center. So I am going to give you the counselors, the director of counseling center is Dr. Agulade, Vicky Agulade, and her email is vogunlad@spelman.edu if you are having difficulties reaching the counseling center.
So can you put that in the chat, Dr. Holloman? That would be great. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Appreciate that. So we have a question about tuition payments, and I'm going to direct this question to our CFO, Dawn Alston. I found out a couple of days ago that the tuition payment structure has changed. and that 50% of the semester tuition is due by July 31st. We also heard a couple of days ago that the 10-month payment plan is no longer available. And I think, Dawn, you're going to have to correct that misconception.
Yes, and I apologize if our communication was confusing. There is still an option to pay your tuition over a 10-month period. I think the easiest way to, if you have questions about this, is to contact student accounts directly, but I do want to confirm that there is still a way for you to pay your tuition over a 10-month period. You can contact student accounts by either going to spelman.edu and then typing in the search, contact the Student Account Center, or you can contact our bursar. Her name is Carmen Kemp. And she will be able to assist you. I think her email address is C as in Carmen, KEMP @spelman.edu.
Thank you. There was also a question about a meal plan for students living off campus. And as I mentioned, yes, you can get a campus meal plan as a commuter student. And I also just want to underscore, we are working on the transportation services that would be available for those students who do not have housing on campus and need to get back and forth to be able to attend their classes. There are questions, multiple questions regarding the cap on the number of family participants in new student orientation. As you know, one of the ways in which we manage infection rates is to keep control of the density of people, that is the number of people on campus. And I should say from last year, Spelman College had a positivity rate that was less than 1%. That was for our students, our faculty, and our staff. So we feel very good, very confident about the controls that we have put in place to be able to manage during this COVID. So Dr. Holloman, do you want to talk about the limits on the number of family members who can participate in new student orientation?
Absolutely. So for move-in, we are requiring that, and new student orientation, that the students bring 2 individuals with them to help them move in. The move-in time slots will be sent out, I believe, next week. You'll get your individual appointments or in a week or so. But it's being limited to 2 hours on campus. And we're requiring that once you have moved your daughter into the residence hall, you won't be able to come back and forth to campus as we've been able to traditionally allow. All of this, the limitation in the move-in time, the 2 individuals to help them move on to campus, is in regards to what Dr. Campbell has said, that we want to make sure that we continue to maintain a healthy campus. Someone did put in the chat about, are we collecting the vaccination cards for parents? We are unable to do that due to HIPAA. We don't have any place that we would be able to store that very private information. And so we are utilizing the Section 3 of the CDC requirements, which speaks towards mixed vaccinated communities, to ensure in every effort possible that we are managing the pandemic, which for many of you may be aware, the D variant, as Dr. Campbell just mentioned, is now becoming very prevalent in the community, and it is impacting younger individuals and those individuals who are not vaccinated. And so each of these efforts are not to curtail the student experience, but to really enhance the experience, because we do not want our students to come to campus and have to deal with health issues that we could have helped to prevent and to mitigate. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Holloman. Dr. Holloman, I have a number of questions that have come up about class of 2024. These are our sophomores who participated in NSO virtually last year as first years. Well, do we have anything special planned for them when they come back? Because they really missed out on all of those in-person wonderful traditions.
Absolutely. And so the way that we've structured new student orient, thank you for that question, Dr. Campbell. The way that we've structured new student orientation this year is for that very reason, to ensure that a lot of those activities that they would have missed, such as Wake Up, a lot of the sister activities that we have, When and Where I Entered, have been structured in the new student orientation this year in a way that they're towards the end of the week, so that we can encompass all of our first years and our second years in all of those activities. For the first year students, we've moved up their registration and those things towards the beginning of new student orientation, so that we could focus on making sure that all of our students could participate in all of the activities. Dr. Campbell has been very amazing in terms of helping us to envision and rethink how we can do new student orientation. So we'll do a lot of things outside. This year, parents, thanks to Dawn Alston, we were able to find some more money in new student orientation budget, so that we will be able this year to provide parents with a lunch, a continental breakfast, a lunch, and I think we'll be able to do dinner. So that we can engage the communities as much as we possibly can. The last point, Olive Branch is a collection between all of the campuses. I think, Dr. Campbell, you said Morehouse, Spelman, and also Clark Atlanta.
Thank you.
Doing that. You're welcome. We're doing that towards the end of the week so we can encompass our second year students. And we're actually re-envisioning that. It had traditionally been inside of a King's Chapel. This year, we're going to do it outdoors. It'll be at the Clark Atlanta Stadium. We're talking about bringing in food trucks. We're trying to look for a popular artist to come in if we can find it. If you're a parent with young people now, you know it's a little baby something. And so we're looking for a little baby somebody to come in and really entertain our students, have a DJ, and just really have a very vibrant experience. We're trying very, very hard to re-engage our students as much as possible, because we realize many of them missed out on their college experience.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Holloman. We're down to our last 2 minutes. I've got lots of questions about when are you going to build new dorms? We have already begun the planning for that. We're starting a master plan. There is a lot of preparation that has to be done financially in order for us to build them. They cost about $75 to $80 million a piece to build a new dormitory, but we have begun the planning for them. I also have a lot of questions that are coming up about funding and how we're going to be using future funds. And we knew that there were going to be a lot of questions about that. So next slide. We're going to devote an entire town hall, and our next town hall will be July 15th, 2021. And that is, how do we plan to spend our federal, how did we spend our federal funds? How do we plan to spend the several different pots of federal funds? These funds did not come to us all at once. In fact, they came to us in a very piecemeal way. Each bucket had very stringent restrictions, but we now have worked out a plan for the spending of these different buckets. We're also going to share with you our plans for the capital funds that we have raised in our very successful comprehensive campaign. These were funds for additional scholarship aid, support of our faculty, upgrading of our technology, and building a new academic facility. So all of that will be for our next town hall. So please tune in. We're now at 5:45. I want to wish everybody a very belated happy Juneteenth. And may all of you have a blessed and joyful July 4th weekend. Until we meet again, be safe, be well, and keep the faith.